the Dairy Council for about a year, and I grew up in southeastern Minnesota. My dad's a crop farmer. He runs a trucking business. We were surrounded by farmers, and Kyle, a lot of people in my experience that I've talked to have never been on a farm. They have zero idea what happens. And when I worked for the Dairy Council, I have probably been on over 1,000 dairy farms at this point. And every single farm that I was on, I was blown away by the amount of care that cows receive because that's the product, right? And a lot of people think that cows are treated, inhumane and poorly. But the reality is cows are treated better than humans. We treat our cows better than veterans. We throw our veterans on the street and don't feed them, don't take care of them, but cows get cow care. They are very well treated. And really what it comes down to is that dairy has gotten a lot of poor information being promoted by influencers because they lack the awareness. Dairy is one of the most highest quality protein sources. It contains leucine, which is the number one driver for muscle protein synthesis. So when people argue that dairy is bad for us, I have to first off ask more questions. Is it the lactose that you're sensitive to? Are you intolerant to it? Are you allergic to it? So lactose, the cows are the milk sugar, if you will. Lactose-free milk is available. Greek yogurt is naturally low in lactose. People can tolerate it. But the data is very clear. There's over 52 research studies supporting that dairy decreases risk of cardiovascular disease, inflammation, type 2 diabetes, obesity. It's when people don't consume the high quality dairy sources, as in Yoplait or some go-go squeeze, which is not even true cow's milk or dairy. It's like processed nonsense,
There you
right?
go,
It's
Ryan. Your
sugar.
go-go squeezes are out now.
Yeah.
I never even heard of go-go squeeze.
Well, if your yogurt comes with sprinkles, something's wrong. Okay.
What
No,
is
I'm
When
just
you,
kidding.
when you freeze them and they make the little push pops.
Yeah.
What is a go-go squeeze?
It's
a
like I think
Go-Gurt.
she's not saying go-gurt on purpose.
Yeah.
But now you made me say it. But go ahead, Wendy. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're right. And that's the thing. So if you read labels, you'll see in the store, kefir, Greek yogurt, cow's milk. So from a nutrient comparison, cow's milk, you would have to consume 8 cups of almond milk to get the equivalent of 1 cup of cow's milk. And almond milk doesn't contain as much calcium, vitamin D. It also doesn't contain leucine. It's more expensive. If you look at the ingredient list in comparison, you're spending more money for less nutrition and it's less quality ingredients. So I just don't understand that perspective when you present it to the consumer and they're still like, I'm going to use almond milk despite the ingredients in the almond milk or a plant-based alternative have been associated with inflammation versus cow's milk has actually been associated with a reduction in inflammation.
Wow. Yeah, I think like it's as simple probably as like people are like, oh, almonds are healthy. I'll have almond milk instead of milk because I hear milk is bad. Like it's probably that simple, but that's the misinformation. It's kind of like the culture over time. One is like something I see when it comes to like the dairy stuff is you see them like you're drinking this much pus per ounce of like that's the thing I see it.
Yeah, no,
and they're like you're drinking blood and pus,
Bug parts.
yeah, and bug parts, and it's like disgusting. My family was dairy farmers in Wisconsin, and I'm like, well, that's not really how it looked there. And they're like, they put these things on them, and it's so bad for them when they're taking the milk from them, and it's like they get so inflamed and they're always in pain. And then like I go to my family's farm, I'm like, it's not like that at all.
The other thing, like to your point of being like the pus and grossness of things.
Pus.
We've said pus more on this podcast than we have in any other podcast combined.
Pus
Well,
is a rough word.
It like whenever someone brings up like gross points like that, I'm like, how many people do you know that have been hurt by pus?
Right,
Like,
right, yeah.
Or like if you like turn it around and be like, how many people do you know who are actually affected by that? It's not a legitimate.
Yeah, how many pus eaters you got?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What are the side effects of pus?
So anyhow, let's go back to Wendy because this is getting gross. But yeah, that's like she knows what she got into when she was with us. But that's like what people talk about is they try to make it like this disgusting thing that you're terrible to drink. It's what you're saying is that the health benefits are there and it actually helps with inflammation.
Absolutely. And another part of that too is the casein protein, the whey protein. So if we compare pea protein versus whey protein, you have significantly more leucine in your whey protein than you do the pea protein. And there's a 2015 study published in the International Society of Sports Nutrition. That journal, it's free access, go check it out. They did a comparison from a muscle protein synthesis standpoint. There were similar effects with both the pea protein and the whey protein. but that's because you had to double essentially the pea protein amount to get the same response with strength training, of course, combined. But that's what my point is, that you have to consume significantly more of the plant-based alternatives to get the same response as you would from the whey or casein protein. So whey being fast digesting and then casein slow digesting. So I have no skin in the game. I'm not paid by big dairy, despite these people online that say you're paid off by the beef industry or the creatine industry,
Yeah.
or I have no ties. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner. I grew up in the ag department. I support our farmers, and they're trying to feed us, and we need to start treating them with more respect.
100%.
I would say that you're probably the smartest person we've had on the podcast based on conversation so far. I think Ryan's a little intimidated. He raised his hand. Ryan, do you have a question?
I do have a question. And this might be a dumb question, but what is
Oh, God.
what is
No dumb
muscle
questions.
what is muscle protein synthesis?
Yeah, so basically hypertrophy, a growth from the skeletal muscle, right? So if we work with a lot of athletes too. So everybody though should care about muscle. Everyone, you guys sitting in the room, aging adults, right? Sarcopenia is age-related muscle loss. We need as much skeletal muscle on our frame as possible because it protects our bones. So if you start to lose, so men, for every decade after 40, they're losing 8% of their lean mass. So
Whoa.
that significantly, right, raises your risk for disease, fractures as we get older, osteoporosis. So you want to get as much lean mass on your body as possible in your youth. And that's the best way to do it, right, is to consume beef, chicken, fish, steak, eggs, dairy. Because as we get older, right, we're losing that. So muscle protein synthesis is stimulated by leucine, isoleucine, and valine. So those are the three BCAs. And people think, right, that you can consume a supplement. It's the same thing. It is not the same thing. So that's why we have to actually eat, the food